The crypto markets are dumping quite significantly right now, guys, and it is not looking too hot. We were anticipating these deviations last week when I let you know exactly the data that was coming out, previous, talks and anticipation with zones that we were seeing on monthly time frames, CME gaps, and a lot of that data, guys. But right now, we're starting to see some massive dumps. A Bitcoin well dumped about 14,000 Bitcoin, which caused a huge red candle for Bitcoin. From there, guys, we'll also have some key news events happening this week, which is going to be anticipating volatility in the markets. And right now, there's still more perspectives around Bitcoin crashing down even further, as well as Ethereum. So this is why it's super important to start keeping up with the price action around Bitcoin, around Ethereum, around altcoins, and also the key news events that are having an effect on the market. If you guys are new to the channel, check out the rest of my content and keep you updated on the day-to-day events, price action on Bitcoin, Ethereum, altcoins, how liquidity is shifting, and practically everything you need to be aware of. Last week, we talked about potential deviations. People even laughed at the fact that I was talking about deviations. And then guess what? Deviations happen, and more deviations are anticipated. And this is why it's super important to keep up not only with the global economic events that are happening, but also the price action and different perspectives around what is taking place. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump straight into the markets, straight into the news events, and what you need to be aware of. So guys, like how I said, the crypto markets are seeing some massive deviations right now. Bitcoin sitting at around 109,000, Ethereum sitting at around 4,300, and the total 3 chart is taking damage. Bitcoin dominance is seeing a little bit of a recovery. Like how I said, we do have some key events that are happening this week, which is super important. This is what caused massive pumps last week, with Ethereum making that new all-time high at the end of the week. So it's super important to keep up with this data and information that comes out. Right now, though, across the market, we are just seeing red across the board. Not looking too hot. Seeing massive liquidations because a lot of people were longed on a lot of assets, pretty much due to positive sentiment and everyone just calling for altcoin season, altcoin season. I dropped a few videos last week talking about this important stuff, and this is why it's super important to keep up with the day-to-day. My portfolio also looks like it wants to jump off a cliff, like I'm sure yours does as well. So do not stress, do not fret. Let's talk about exactly what is going on. So right now, more deviations are anticipated with Bitcoin, specifically based off of the monthly time frames and how everything was performing. It was kind of dumb to think that everything was just going to keep on ripping and keep on pumping without a correction. That is currently what is taking place. But some people are talking about zones hitting below 100,000, which is why it is super important to start keeping up with this price action and see if that comes into fruition. Now, Ethereum is also starting to crash down quite significantly, starting to see a little bit of a correction because we did see a new daily candle start already today. But I'm sure that it's going to jump up, hit this zone of liquidity, and then from there start to dump down more. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are calling for Ethereum to pump up, to rip. So only in due time will we see. Total 3E chart is following the price action with Ethereum. Altcoins are not going to be pumping until Ethereum starts to get back to that 4,800 region and starts to, show some strength. Right now, we're starting to see weakness, so altcoins are also showing weakness. Bitcoin dominance is seeing a little bit of a recovery. A new candle on the daily time frame has also just started, so we're starting to see a little bit of deviations as well with this chart. But right now, guys, this is where a lot of people are anticipating that Bitcoin dominance is going to have one final stretch before then giving all of the liquidity to Ethereum and altcoins. But this is where you got to chime in and let me know your perspective on what's going on. Now, massive pumps in the markets last week, and then moving into this week, it wasn't looking too hot. We were starting to see massive liquidation, specific sectors talking about exactly, what was going to be happening based off of returns and earnings, and also, more talks about specific tariffs around countries and deals that are being made. A lot of different things, guys, a lot of moving parts. But one of the biggest thing is that we saw over 24,000 Bitcoin pretty much sold by a whale. I said 14,000, I believe, not too long ago. It's 24,000 Bitcoin worth over $2.7 billion, which caused a $4,000 crash in minutes for Bitcoin on Sunday. This caused a lot of liquidations. Everyone started selling their bags. It's mainly due to the fact that everyone was long, so everyone got liquidated, and then from there it just pretty much poured more into the red that we were seeing. So this was a really huge event that happened. And then on top of that, guys, moving into the rest of the week, we have some key news events that are going to be taking place. Like how I said last week, we pumped really hard moving into Thursday and Friday. mainly due to the fact because of the data that was coming out. And also, how everyone was feeling with altcoins and the price action we were seeing. So moving into this week, we do have some important data. Monday and Tuesday, not too much important with the new home sales data and the August consumer confidence data, but more moving into Thursday and Friday with the US Q2 2025 GDP data, the MI consumer sentiment data, and the July PCE inflation data. This is really going to let us know exactly how the US economy is looking, the Fed cuts that are anticipated in September, and pretty much more talks and what is going to be happening. This is super important. I can't stress about it enough. I longed on Friday whenever Ethereum made the new all-time high, made a crazy amount of money, decent amount of money, guys. And this is where, if you keep up with this information, you can do that as well. So with all that being said, now there's perspectives around Bitcoin, around Ethereum, and exactly what is anticipated. And one of the biggest things, guys, is more deviations. I think there's a lot of people that are super bullish right now, preaching that altcoin season is already about to start. Not Killer XBT, not Dr. Profit, and not a few other ones like Benjamin Cohen as well. They're being a little bit more realistic and showing exactly what we've seen in previous zones and what is currently taking place. Now, if we look into the Killer XBT's perspective on what he thinks is going to be taking place with Bitcoin, he thinks that Bitcoin is already near the top and is already pretty much ranging in that zone. And I think that we're pretty close based off of exactly, how previous cycles had played out, and moving into the end of the year whenever we start to see liquidity completely shift back into Ethereum and altcoins. But right now, everyone is, starting to look at exactly if Bitcoin is going to keep on deviating, and KillXBT actually thinks that Bitcoin has already topped or is very close to it. I'm going to drop a full video on this because I actually think that Bitcoin is close to that all-time high, but at the end of the day, like I said, that is for a whole nother video. But more deviations are anticipated with Bitcoin. Right now, Dr. Profit is talking about it, how it's a bad day for the bulls, and how the 24,000 Bitcoin crash was due to his Sunday report, which I thought was hilarious. But he pretty much was ranging, guys, off of specific, lows that we were seeing, CME gaps, and areas that we needed to sweep based off of exactly what we were seeing. And this is where it's super important to keep up with multiple perspectives in the market, not just one. I know you get super bullish, everyone gets super bullish, but then when something like this happens, it blindsides you and you don't know what's taking place. This was the main chart that we talked about last week, and pretty much how we were anticipating a deviation close to 100,000, maybe even below that, based off of what was happening. And now it's starting to happen, and honestly, Dr. Profit has a specific short in play, and I think he's going to keep it, let it running. He says still early to celebrate, more beautiful days coming. Thank you for your understanding. And this is where it's super important to understand not only the price action, the news events, but also what everyone is anticipating, not just the bulls or just the bears. Now, Crypto Intelligence X talks a little bit about the perspective with Bitcoin and how it's showing a little bit of strength and how potentially we could be moving upwards, but we're starting to see that breakdown, and it's pretty straightforward that we are more than likely going to be seeing a little bit more deviations before we start to see a huge rip up, especially moving into September with the rate cuts. That's going to be a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of event, and I'm sure we're going to start to see Bitcoin dominance see a little bit of a recovery. That's something that Benjamin Cohen was talking about, which he made a great post that I talked about as soon as it came out a few days ago. He said, after Ethereum puts in the new all-time highs, we will likely witness a massive rotation back into Bitcoin. Now, I'm sure he wasn't anticipating the well selling over 24,000 Bitcoin, but at the end of the day, this is currently what is already taking place. He says, however, the rotation back to Bitcoin will likely be initiated by a Bitcoin correction in September and will continue on a Bitcoin rally in October. So he believes that, we're going to be seeing a Bitcoin correction, and it's going to be happening moving into September, which is already happening, at the end of August, moving into September, and he thinks it's going to keep on happening, and then from there, we're going to see a rally for Bitcoin in October. This could really point to the fact how Killer XBT thinks that not altcoins, that Bitcoin is already topped, or that we're getting really close to the top, and this all varies based off of all-time highs in previous cycles, as well as overall where Bitcoin is currently sitting, and also these specific patterns that he is drawing out. But this kind of aligns with my perspective, guys, expecting deviations and just waiting exactly for that price action to return. Now, overall, crypto markets are dumping. Everything is looking red, and I'm sure your altcoin portfolio is not looking too hot. But whenever the markets are looking like this is an area of opportunity. This is a time to start dollar cost averaging into your positions, because more than likely we're going to be seeing these prices jump back up, and anyone that allocates is going to be making some crazy gains. If we look at my crypto portfolio, we're seeing red across the market, guys. This is where a lot of opportunity is presenting itself. I'm dollar cost averaging right now. I'm getting paid at the end of this week, and I am planning on throwing even more money into the market. But it is super important to keep up with the data that is coming out throughout the week, and also the sentiment, so that you can anticipate if you need to allocate to the market or if you need to sit on your hands and wait for more price action, especially with what's anticipated this week. So that is currently what is taking place in the markets, guys. A lot of crazy stuff. We have some key news events that are happening. We had a crazy whale dump a whole bunch of Bitcoin, which caused a huge deviation with Bitcoin, which caused massive liquidations across the market. And as a result, we're feeling the aftermath. Moving into the week, though, we have some important data that is going to be coming out, which is going to be allowing you to position yourself correctly. You can make some decent gains if you do it. So this is where keeping up with all this information and data is super important. And on this channel, that's what I try to do, guys. Go check out the rest of my data, and not my data, my content, everything that I drop. I walk through the data, the price action, the news events, and exactly everything you need to be aware of so that you can navigate the space more effectively. Last week, I was anticipating deviations after the huge rip up that we were seeing with Ethereum. Not many people believed me. Some people even laughed at me, but it's really due to the fact that I'm a small account. Not that many believe in someone like me, but whenever you condense all of the perspectives, the analysts, the traders, you start to learn more about price action, the news events, how it has an effect on the correlation between all of these things. You start to have a good understanding of what to anticipate in the markets, and you start to gain a little bit more confidence. And that's what I plan to do on this channel. I'm gonna keep dropping day-to-day content, keeping you guys updated on all the information when I plan to sell my crypto portfolio and everything else in between. Overall, though, if you guys have any questions or suggestions, drop it down below. Share the content with someone that wants to know more about crypto and what's going on in the space and exactly how to position yourselves. I love to pretty much educate everyone and show everyone how that they can do all this. Now, this is all just for, fun purposes, not financial advice by any means. I'm just documenting my journey and showing everyone what is possible whenever you get started with this stuff. So drop me a comment, like, subscribe. Let me know where you guys are on your journey. I drop day-to-day content every day. Anticipate the news events that are happening this week. Expect volatility. And overall, hopefully I catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.